What do you mean, why do you look that way? April, you're beautiful. Side note, if you hear like tapping and drinking and eating, that's my dog. He's sitting in the living room. He's kind of fidgety this morning.
So today we're going to be talking about all of my eye conditions, and believe me, there's quite a few.
Disclaimer, I am completely fine with the way I look. It took a very long time for me to get to where I'm at. And so just know that if you know anyone with any of these conditions, it's kind of a process, and you kind of just need to let that person grieve, if you will, so to speak. Like I said, I'm 25, and I've been dealing with this for all of my life. A few things were just diagnosed when I was in middle school, but I mean, it's still taken years for me to become okay with who I am. So just know that in this video, I'm completely comfortable with who I am and what I look like and all the things that I have. But if you know somebody who has just received one of these diagnoses, to just be very patient with them.
Also, my explanations of these eye conditions are not perfect, but it's how I understand it. So if you know anything different, leave me a comment down below. So first and foremost, of what people should know about me and all of my eye conditions is that 90% of them were from birth, and so I have never known anything different. I was born premature, and so that made things completely different as far as when I was diagnosed and how they treated certain things. My first condition that I'm going to talk about today is cataracts. I was born with congenital bilateral cataracts, and what that means is I had cataracts in both eyes from birth on. That's all bilateral and congenital means. Now, what is a cataract? A cataract is the clouding of your lens that is located in your eye. The lens of your eye is responsible for all of your autofocus, how you focus on objects, how you read, that type of thing. And so when you get cataracts, that lens that is supposed to be clear as day, it starts to kind of fog and cloud over, and so you can't see out of it, and eventually it causes blindness. And so the standard treatment for cataracts is to just have them removed. Easy enough. So when I was a baby, I had my cataract surgery and I had my lenses removed. Since I was premature and a baby, my eyes were much smaller. So generally speaking, when they take your lens out, you get an artificial lens put back in. Well, because my eyes were so much smaller, I never had a lens put back in, which leads me to my next diagnosis. When you are a person who does not have an interocular lens in your eye, you are known as somebody who is aphakic, otherwise known as the condition of aphakia. It just means you don't have a lens, which means it's harder to focus on moving objects, it's harder to read. Kind of goes hand in hand with what I said about cataracts. The most common thing that people comment about when they first meet me is, why do your eyes move back and forth? That condition is called horizontal nystagmus. Horizontal obviously meaning this way as opposed to vertical nystagmus where it's up and down. But basically, yeah. So what nystagmus is it's actually a condition of the muscles around your eye. It doesn't really have anything to do with your eyes, though it does affect your vision. So nystagmus is the involuntary movement of your eyes. So when I'm sleeping, when I'm eating, when all the time, it's there. My nystagmus is something that most of the time doesn't bother me, and your brain's really good about correcting things that are wrong with your vision. So when you see my eyes bouncing back and forth, that's not how I see the room. Everything is really still to me, just because your brain is that good at correcting it. But I have nystagmus when I run, it's there when I go to sleep, it's there when I'm stressed, especially when I'm stressed and angry. It's just out of control. But my world never spins, so that's nystagmus. There is corrective surgery for nystagmus, but because it's a muscle, eventually that muscle wears and you have to get the surgery again. All of the ophthalmologists that I've talked to say it lasts anywhere from 3 to 10 years, and I'm just really not into having the same type of surgery all over again. As a side note, I have had 24 surgeries, so I have a lot of scar tissue buildup, and after you've had that many surgeries, you tend to not heal as well. So I really have to weigh out the pros and cons when it comes to surgery. It's not necessarily a trigger, but it's the reason that I made this channel. It's providing education. A lot of people refer to this condition as the lazy eye, and nobody ever has any idea of what it's actually called. And it's called Amblygia. And what that is when it usually happens in the early stages of childhood development, and it's basically when your vision does not, what is the word I'm looking for? It's when vision doesn't develop the way it's supposed to. And what that means is your eyes have developed the way they need to, everything's good, but you just never learn how to see as well. It usually only happens with one eye, and for me, it's my left eye. So now that you know that it's actually called Amblygia, I would really like for people to stop telling me I have a lazy eye. Again, I'm fine with it. I've gotten over it. At this point in my life, I realize that if people have a problem with the way I look, that's their problem, not mine. But it's still kind of something that makes me cringe when I hear it. And my next diagnosis is called Micro-cornea. That just, basically the definition of that is that your corneas in your eyes are smaller than 10 millimeters. Your cornea is responsible for bending light that comes into your eye. You don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain, but your eyes are obviously the portal that send the messages to your brain. And so my corneas don't bend light the way they're supposed to. And basically what that means is I need extra light in order to see the way everyone else does. And this actually contradicts my next diagnosis, which we'll get into. But the way microcornea affects me actually is that because my corneas are smaller, they're also thicker, which makes it hard to get my eye pressure spot on. It's either higher or lower than what it actually is, and why that is important is actually due to my last diagnosis. So this diagnosis doesn't really have a name, and I don't know what it's called, so if you know what it's called, leave it down in the comments. The second thing that people comment on most about me, other than my eyes bouncing back and forth, is the fact that I don't have pigment in my eye. Well, actually I do. I have very small irises. My natural eye color is brown. My fridge is making some crazy noise. My eye color is brown. You can't see it very well, but it is there, at least in my right eye. And so the function of your iris is to control how much light intake comes into your eye. And it controls whether or not your pupil dilates or not. And why that's important is, say you are hanging out with your friends in the summertime when it's really bright outside and you decide you want to go to a movie. So you're outside and then you go into the movie and all of a sudden it's really dark. Well, naturally your eyes and your pupils adjust to that, whereas mine do not. Also, when you leave the movie theater, it's super dark, and then all of a sudden you go in the light, and it might hurt people for like 30 seconds. Well, that will completely ruin my day and cause me to have a migraine. So, for those of you who do know me, I travel with sunglasses all the time, constantly. At 6:30 in the morning when it's cloudy outside and the sun's not up yet, I always have sunglasses with me. And it's kind of annoying because I literally leave them everywhere. My eyes aren't so sensitive to the light to where I need them inside buildings. Sometimes I do, but more often than not, I just go outside with them. And for me, my eyes just don't know how to make the switch because they can't dilate. And it's very frustrating when I go to other doctors' offices and they haven't faxed over my file, which is about yay thick, and they're sitting there for 3.5 hours trying to dilate my eyes. So there's that. All of these things up until this diagnosis I grew up with. I actually didn't even know I had them until high school, and I did my research and I started talking to my doctors, because up until about 5th grade I just thought that I had kind of bad vision. Everybody everyone in my family wears glasses, and I wore glasses as a child. I just thought I had the same kind of vision that they did, and nobody ever explained to me that Nobody explained to me that I had a visual impairment. Nobody explained to me that I was legally blind. It was kind of a don't ask, don't tell kind of a situation. They just wanted me to grow up and have a normal childhood and all that kind of stuff. And I did enjoy my childhood, but when I did find out that I had all these things wrong with me, there was kind of a part of me that was like, you did not trust me enough to talk to me, and it kind of closed the door towards my parents and some of my family. But I digress. We will get into this last diagnosis. When I was in 7th grade, I was diagnosed with glaucoma. And a lot of people are familiar with glaucoma, but if you're not, if you want to picture your eye as a water balloon, it's filled with fluid. Basically, your body's job is to take in this fluid, and then it's supposed to drain out by itself and not cause any issues. But when you have glaucoma, I believe I have open angular. I'm sorry if it's wrong, but I have open angled glaucoma. I don't know what that means. You'll have to Google that part. But basically, glaucoma is when your body doesn't do a good job of draining that excess fluid. And why that's important is if you fill a water balloon too much, eventually that water balloon is going to pop. Now, my eyes are not going to explode, but the buildup in that eye pressure is going to put pressure on your optic nerve, which causes nerve damage, which inevitably leads to blindness, and it is irreversible. And so earlier in the video, when I talked about having micro-cornea and my corneas being smaller but also thicker, they have a tool in the ophthalmologist's office that they just kind of like stick in your eye, not stick, but they hold it close to your eye, and it kind of measures your pressure. And the higher your pressure is, the more dangerous or damaging it can be. Normal ranges are usually 19 and below. I have relatively stable to moderate glaucoma. My pressures usually are between 22 and 30. They really don't go above 30. But that doesn't mean that the numbers that I have still aren't damaging. Thus far, I don't have any optic nerve damage from glaucoma, so that's good. So that's been about 11 years of me having glaucoma where I haven't had nerve damage. For me, it was important for this video to be one of the first videos I made because it's easier for me to work with people when I know what the diagnosis is, so I can kind of have a little bit more perspective of what they see, what they don't see. It's not so much that vision loss impacts my daily life. Sometimes it does, especially on those days when I have really bad migraines and headaches, which are different to people. I didn't make this video for pity. We're over that. Girl, we've been there, we've done that. I made it for you guys as viewers because, for one, you might have one of these things and think that you're the only one. I have never met anybody who has eyes like myself. I have met one or two people that have almost all of my same diagnoses, but generally they still have the extra pigment in their eyes and their irises look more normal than mine. I have been kicked out of doctor's offices, so to speak. I've been to several optometrists where they say, I just don't have the skills to help you, we're not going to charge you for this visit, I'm going to refer you to someone else. I went into high school not knowing I had a disability, not knowing I was legally blind, not knowing I had anything wrong with my eyes, which, if you're a parent out there, do not do that because you are not helping anybody. I will, however, give my mom the benefit of the doubt because she is originally from Thailand. Her English wasn't that great, so I think the way she was just trying to deal with it was that she had a daughter with all these things wrong with them, but was otherwise healthy, and she was just trying to get by. Not to mention, I do have 4 older brothers who did not really give her that easy of a time. So was I angry at the time for finding out that I had a disability? No one told me, absolutely. But as I get older and I have kids of my own, I'm just starting to understand that you have to pick and choose your own battles, and that was one that she just chose not to do. If you have any of my diagnoses, comment down below or hit the like button. If you have a certain diagnosis that you would like me to look into and talk about, comment down below. Thank you for watching the video. I'm really excited to get this channel up and running. I think my next video is going to be just a simple Q&A about all the other aspects of my life, just so you guys can get to know me a little bit better before I start throwing information out. Because for me at least, if I'm gonna start listening to someone, I wanna know everything there is to know about that person. So, stay tuned.